Unbelievable, Red Bull have done it. They have finally admitted it. Ferrari are faster. Is this just mind games, or do Red Bull truly believe that Ferrari are faster? Ferrari's pace during the recent race was ultimately too fast for the chasing pack, leading Christian Horner to admit after the race that Ferrari had the pace advantage and therefore greater strategic options. However, is the Ferrari car really that much faster than the Red Bull? And how is Mercedes doing in all of this? Are they suddenly the dark horses to win the championship? Lewis Hamilton was happy to finish the challenging Austrian Grand Prix on the podium again in 2022, ultimately with a stroke of good fortune. Let's dive in to see if the Ferrari is truly faster than the Red Bull, and if Mercedes' new upgrades have indeed started to turn the tide on their woeful season. The points gap between Ferrari and Mercedes is currently lower than the gap between Ferrari and Red Bull. Following the recent Grand Prix results, it's clear Red Bull needs to be very scared. Ferrari believes Mercedes is hiding its actual pace on the single-lap runs, since Red Bull hasn't given a meaningful extended run yet. Despite the fact that Red Bull is in a league of their own, according to team principal Toto Wolff, his team won't overtake the front-runners until much later in the season. One can only wonder if Red Bull, who has as many as 26 victories and 16 pole positions, would permit it to happen. Carlos Sainz remarked, "We can see what they are doing in GPS." There is a theory that Mercedes is concealing the car's real capability for lap times by how it uses its power unit. Lewis Hamilton dismissed the idea after finishing fourth fastest, 0.6 seconds behind Sainz Ferrari, which had set the pace. He exclaimed, "Will be really fantastic if we didn't have all these oversteer incidents and bad driving. That isn't the situation. We are attempting to overcome obstacles. Some people are having it easier. Who knows, maybe we'll be able to explain things better soon." Sainz thinks Mercedes is using this as an intentional ruse. Of course, there is still the chance that the Mercedes power unit cannot deploy as well as the Ferrari, although this seems doubtful considering that it's never been an issue with other Mercedes power units. Lewis Hamilton was happy to finish the challenging Grand Prix on the podium again in 2022. He thanked Mercedes for helping save his weekend and making upgrades to their cars to chip away at competitors. Hamilton's weekend in Spielberg was smooth. It started well with great qualifying pace, but ended with a collision in Q3 and only one place gain to 7th for the sprint. However, the 7-time world champion had a strong race day, moving up to 4th and then taking the podium for the 3rd time in a row due to Carlos Sainz's Ferrari's engine fire. Hamilton informed Sky Sports F1 that Mercedes outperformed Red Bull and Ferrari, with George Russell finishing 4th. "This is great recovery for us as a team. It's really good. I feel fantastic," he continued. "Especially after such a rough weekend start, I'm delighted with today." Lewis Hamilton passes Mick Schumacher and Kevin Magnussen of Haas. "We were looking so good in qualifying when I just plain smashed it. It's hard to wrap your brain around that, knowing the crew worked so hard to develop a new automobile for me. That impacts everything, our budget, and so many people have to produce new components," the speaker said. "That's never a good feeling, but I wanted to show my thanks by going back up there and scoring some fantastic points for the team." Although Charles Leclerc won the race and finished 40 seconds ahead of Hamilton, he said, "Keep working while keeping your head down. We are slowly consuming the people before us, but they are still moving quickly." Despite the team's issues over the weekend, the 7-time world champion had a magnificent drive, moving up 5 spots to earn an improbable podium result. Hamilton benefited from some other drivers' misfortune on the grid. With its Formula One vehicle for 2022, Mercedes has achieved a significant advancement that has produced a breakthrough that might define its season. Following the team's realization that the porpoising that has been seriously hindering its vehicles, the Spanish Grand Prix was significantly more competitive. James Vowles, head of F1 strategy for Mercedes, says, "We've only had 1 race out of 6 when the vehicle has been well behaved. For once, it was a vehicle that was a true racing car. We could configure it, adjust it, fiddle with the parameters, and it would respond predictably. And the same couldn't be said of the vehicle we used for the season's first 5 races. We had to keep our expectations in check. There is just one track, and that track has worked well for our automobile for many years before this one. There is plenty for us to comprehend and discover. But I can say that we've made a clear advancement in our comprehension and the application of what we put in place, and from there we can expand. We will advance from where we are right now, but it will take time, not immediately. Now though, there is a car that is practically touching the front, and a vehicle in which we may compete for a championship." Mercedes' first few races were marred by compromise. The confusion of the defending champion team demonstrated the intricacy of the situation. It didn't understand why variations in wind direction, speed, or track grip may unexpectedly make the issue better or worse. The best example of this came in Miami, when Mercedes excelled on Friday, but then fell back into its regular struggles on Saturday and Sunday due to minor changes in the weather and track conditions. For two reasons, conventional development techniques were essentially worthless. First, this intricate phenomenon couldn't be simulated or duplicated in a wind tunnel. As a result, Mercedes had to devise a method to simulate the issues between the tunnel and CFD, which entails creating a computer-simulated model of a race car and then applying the laws of physics to the virtual prototype to predict what the downforce or drag might be on various components of the car or how the car will respond in various conditions. After some time, Mercedes could duplicate it somewhat, allowing the team to determine which aspects of the automobile were the most sensitive. That made it possible to decide on a growth path, which resulted in the scenes we saw last weekend. Mercedes had tested these scenes on a filming day in France before moving on to Spain. They added a slit to the outside border of the floor to improve performance and a new bib vane as well on the keel in the center of the vehicle. The second problem was that Mercedes could not make genuine improvements to their vehicle, so the W13 had to be run at a higher ride height outside the intended setup range to reduce the bouncing. Mercedes' main focus was on utilizing the available technologies to reduce the bouncing as much as possible. For instance, a new front wing end plate design with a gentle inboard curve was developed in Spain to enhance flow to the vehicle's rear. Mercedes also upgraded the lower deflector end plate at the back to assist the diffuser in operating better. All of this was advantageous right away. Russell started fourth in the Spanish Grand Prix after qualifying Sergio Perez of the Red Bull team. This was the first time this season that a Mercedes driver made it onto the first two rows of the grid, so it's reasonable to wonder just how much has been accomplished and how much more Mercedes needs to do to preserve its season and challenge for the title. The British GP was Mercedes' strongest weekend of the season, and they followed it up with great damage control at an Austrian GP track where they struggled. While Hamilton finished 40 seconds behind race winner Charles Leclerc, he said, "We've just got to keep our heads down and to chip away. We are slowly eating into the guys ahead, but they are still pretty quick." The leader of Mercedes, Toto Wolff, asserts the team has reduced the gap with its rivals but admits that more work has to be done. Toto Wolff agreed that we're steadily getting there, they need to keep making progress. Now and again, we're off by a few tenths, though I believe the distance has been cut in half in the previous 3 months and improved our comprehension. We are still third and fourth and in the middle of nowhere. What do you think Mercedes will produce at the forthcoming French Grand Prix? We'll have to wait another week to find out. Who do you think will finish the season on top? Comment below.